Okay, we're live. Good evening, everyone. I'm just going to give it one quick second here for all of the internet to do its thing, and we should be up and running very shortly. We have around 300 people here live directly, but there'll be more kind of jumping in. So we're going to start in just 1 minute. Let me share my screen here, and we're going to do some introductions as well. So turn screen share on, that one. Okay, so stepping up to secondary school, and this whole webinar, if you like, is going to take roughly an hour. We're going to start very, very shortly, and we're going to be running till roughly 8:05. And the plan will be to get things kind of finished up and closed off and out the door at around 8:05, very promptly. So that's the sort of time commitment we're talking about. We'll just do some introductions. My name is Emmett Major. I work over in the west of Ireland for the Education Training Board over here and the Drug Task Force, and I'm currently coordinator with this project called Planet Youth. Niamh O'Flanagan is with us. You want to give us a quick wave there, Niamh? That's Niamh, and she's the school chaplain in Glenamady Community School, and she's done this webinar with us now for the last 3 years, I think. This is the fourth of them, I believe. So, and it's great to have her here. She's going to talk very much about life in school and how schools welcome the kids, pastoral care, how kids integrate into school and so on. We have Gina Dermody here. Gina is an adolescent psychotherapist, and she's based out west as well. She covers the region, I suppose, but she's based out of Tuam, and she's been part of these webinars for a number of years now as well, since the start. And she's going to talk, I suppose, a little bit more about just the concerns that young people have, issues that she sees, issues she deals with in her work, how we can better prepare our kids around getting ready for school and so on. We'll be covering a multitude, really. So Gina will be talking quite a bit as well. Helen Butler, hi. Helen, give us a wave there if you can. Yeah, we're up and running. And Helen does a myriad of things, really, but she's here, I suppose, in several capacities, really. Helen's a youth information officer with Youth Work Ireland, and she's based out in Ballinasloe. She's also works as sort of a life coach, a youth mentor. She does training for the National Parents Council. So she has a lot of hats, really, but she's here really to talk about this. She does a lot of school transition work out and about in schools, but she also has a lot of really useful and interesting things to say to parents as well. So Helen's going to be covering a fair bit first. So that's roughly it. I'm going to give you a very flying presentation, a very, very short presentation that you're looking at here on the screen now. A little bit about the Planet Youth Project, and really just going to walk you through the Step Up website a tiny little bit as well, right? So that's it. Bear with me. And this is pretty much a very informal. When I finish with the presentation, we'll just have a screen full of talking heads. I'm going to be putting questions that have come in from the parents to the guys. There's a whole pile of them already. But what I would suggest is if you want to submit any questions into the chat here, would you do that, please? And we'll try and cover everything. I'll be recording these questions as they come through, and I'll be putting them to the guys at the end if we haven't covered everything through the kind of questions that have come in already by email. I see a question there that came in and asking about recording. Yes, it will be recorded, and I'll be sending out an email to the link of the recording. It'll be put up online, and I'll be sending out the link to anybody who's registered. Will get a link. It'll probably be Thursday, possibly Friday. But yeah, you can check then back, or you can maybe even have your young person look back if there's a part that you thought was particularly interesting. So without further ado, I'll talk to you a little bit about Planet Youth. So Planet Youth is pretty much everything I'll talk about is available there on the website. So you can see there planetyouth.ie. We've got all the reports. We've got most of the videos, most of the resources. This actual video, this recording of this webinar will be up on that website in a few days' time. If anybody is nervous or doesn't want to put something in on the chat, you can do it privately to me, or if you want to send an email, you can do so to info@planetyouth.ie. I'll be monitoring that as well as we go. So that's the website, and an email address that I'll be looking at this evening will be info@planetyouth.ie. So it's a public health program we're adapting here in the west of Ireland, across Galway, Mayo and Roscommon. And it's looking at improving long-term health and life outcomes for our school-going population, right? It's based on what was called the Icelandic prevention model, or the IPM, and it was used in Iceland and developed in Iceland over quite a number of years to reduce what were quite alarming substance use rates in their young people when they started back in the sort of mid to late 90s. And they went very quickly from having the highest substance use rates of anybody that was counting to the lowest. It took them about 15 years or so. Using this preventative approach, but they've kept them the lowest now for the last decade. So something very impressive happened in Iceland. And that's what we're trying to emulate here and pilot here, I suppose, in the west of Ireland, right? We're using this preventative model to look certainly at the substance use of our young people, which is a bit of a concern, but also looking at things like physical activity, screen use, mental health. Sleep is a huge issue, which I'll touch on. So every 2 years now in the West, we have 91 schools and centres across Galway, Mayo, Roscommon. So Niamh School, the one in Glenamaddy, will participate. They all participate. So every 2 years, we survey the children 15 and 16 years old with the Planet Youth questionnaire. And it's a very thorough examination of the lives of our young people. You'd ask them all about their life at home, their life at school, their life online, their friends, their hobbies, their sports, their substance use, mental health, things that concern them. All of it's gone into quite a lot of detail. It takes them nearly an hour to complete the survey. That's it there in the paper-based form. It's about a ton of paper when it's all finished, and it's optically scanned. The most recent version was done online, which is a huge improvement, right? But really what we're trying to find out is what are the risk and protective factors in the lives of our teenagers that we can use to improve the situation for the children that are coming behind. So where are we going well and where are we falling behind? Where can we develop actions or interventions or changes or tweaks or improvements that will change the landscape the kids are growing up in? How can we improve things for the younger children, right? So that's what the voice of the teenager gives us. So it's their story, if you like, that we're using to improve the children coming behind. So certainly the ones that are entering into our secondary schools, but increasingly the ones who are entering into the national school system. So we do a big piece of work around the junior infant intake now as well, just to inform parents there. One of the things we've done from very early on is the development of this booklet called the Guidelines Booklet for Parents, and that's the fridge magnet or fridge sticker that goes with it, guidance around bedtimes. We started doing that in 2019, and in all the schools in the west of Ireland, we've 91 in total. This gets distributed now out to all the incoming first-year parents every year, and it's just simple guidance. It tells a little bit about what we see in the survey. It's not thorough, but it talks a tiny bit about the project, the importance of communication. I should stress, actually, here in Ireland, we are extremely high. Most of the metrics and most of the measurements that we see around parenting and caring and warmth and parental monitoring, parental supervision, all of it is extremely high, if not the highest internationally. So there's really very little concern here. But all it's saying is, listen, as our children get older, what we want to try and do is keep the communication going. They want to spend less time with their parents, but as long as they can come and talk to us if there's problems or we're there, there's enough communication to spot what's going on. That's really what the family time thing is all about, but we're already very good there. Okay, hobbies and sports, extremely important to keep young people going in hobbies and sports as they get into their teens and later teen years. All the evidence says the kids who are kind of busy with stuff that interests them and supervised structured activities are the ones that do better. And they know that they never really show up in the substance use rates either. So that was why kind of a lot of effort went into developing youth infrastructure and so on in Iceland. So it's a really interesting story. Alcohol use and substance use, we are very high here in Ireland. These crazy high numbers they started at in Iceland were kind of there here, right? So it's something that we should be probably a little bit more alarmed about. But we're very high for alcohol use. Screen use is very high. It went up a little during COVID and it hasn't come down again. So we're seeing huge amounts of kind of excessive screen use in our young people. We asked a question about phones in bedrooms in the latest survey. 83% of these teenagers have phones in their rooms at night, which is impacting their sleep in a huge way. And 56% of them aren't getting enough sleep. So there's a little bit of guidance here around sort of bedtimes we should be aiming for. And these are kind of lights out times. Now, teens don't like going to bed early, right? They like to stay up late and so on. But we're just saying we could possibly try to help them a little bit more about sleep routines. And we're trying to maybe do a little bit more education around it for them because it's not really covered terribly much in the curriculum. But as parents, it's something we can do a little bit more of, right? And this idea of having phones in bedrooms or getting phones out of bedrooms. So when, it's something just, if you can try and bring that in at the start, where phones are handed up to be charged at nighttime, that they're not brought into bedrooms for alarm clocks or homework or things like that, that they're handed up to be charged in the kitchen or hall, it will be hugely important. And I'll show you just quite how important. So this is how much sleep the kids are getting. You can see on the screen here, and that's the 44% kids that are getting 8 hours or more sleep on the left. A third of our kids are getting about 7 hours sleep a night. 15% of them are getting 6 hours, and 8% are getting less than 6 hours. So that all adds up to the 56% that aren't getting enough sleep. The 7-hour kids might catch up at the weekend a little. The the 6 hours and less than 6 hours, that 23% can never catch up. That's just sleep deficit, it's called, where you'll never really catch up. So it's affecting all these other aspects of their lives. So this is a correlation between sleep and mental health. And this will begin to show quite how important sleep is. So these are kids that are reporting, a very simple metric around how do you feel about your mental health, this one, right? So the ones who can say they feel they have good or very good mental health is 64% of those kids that sleep properly will say that. It drops to 53 and 36 and 22. So that's the correlation between sleep and positive mental health. This is a much more important scale, if you like, within the survey called the Warwick Edinburgh Subjective Wellbeing Scale. So it's a series of 10 questions. And this is what it adds up to, basically. So we have a very clear idea of well-being in our young people. And again, 65% of the kids that are sleeping properly are reporting what I call high levels of well-being. And again, it drops to 56 to 44 and right down to 24. And that's a lot of kids. That's 56% of the kids that have these lower well-being scores. And it's all directly related to sleep, by and large. Okay, stress, the same picture. So kids reporting low levels of stress would be, dramatically impacted here. Then we have sleep and school engagement. Again, this one should be probably really kind of important to parents. So this is nothing very much to do with school academics or doing well with tests and exams and in schoolwork. It's more to do with being able and ready and enjoying what school has to offer. So this idea of high levels of school engagement, again, it's a 10-item scale. But we can see very clearly the children who are sleeping correctly are doing better in school in all sorts of ways, and they're ready to do better in school. So it's not a matter of just that they're academically inclined. It's just that they're be the same for us as adults. If we're going into the office, we're not sleeping well every night of the week. It's going to be the same. So it's hugely, hugely important. So that was the thing I just wanted to kind of point out to you in that space. And a big part of this is helping kids with sleep routines. We do a big webinar about this in November, typically every year. So it might be something to have a look at as well, or keep an eye out for. But the key one really would be just trying to keep phones out of bedrooms, keep phones out, whatever you can do there, because there's a huge correlation between this lack of sleep and having phones, right? Okay, just very quickly, alcohol. This is what the kids have to say in the survey about substance use and what their parents feel about substance use. And this is over the course of the 3 surveys. It's probably a little bit complicated looking at this, but for vaping, most of the kids feel their parents would be 90% of them feel their parents would be dead against or dead set. They'd be totally against it or against it if I vaped. That's held very steady. 97% of them, 98% nearly, my parents would be dead against it if I used cannabis. Same for smoking, 94, 93%, parents would be dead set against me smoking. But when we come to getting drunk, it's gone from right across the region. Now, it says what's common here, but it's the same picture right across the region. But it's been dropping every time we've done the survey. The parents seem to be, or the kids feel, their parents are more and more and more tolerant of them using alcohol and getting drunk. And wherever we see this, we see an increase in alcohol use. So one thing I'd just like to point out, really, again, you don't have to worry about this just yet, because your kids are 12 and 13, or they're about to be 13, and they're going into secondary school. But it's going to come into the conversation a little bit early on, almost straight away. They will come asking, some of them by as early as second year, can they have a few cans of drink before disco or junior disco? Everybody's doing it. You're weird. Everybody's parent, and that's the sort of narrative. Particularly, you'll be used to this with the phones. Everybody's got a phone, therefore I have the phone. Everybody's, getting cans from their parents, therefore. But it's not the case. And wherever we can see that parents can put this off, it's by far and away the best thing you can do together as parents, but also for your, just for the health, the long-term health of your young people. It tends to be the kids who start drinking regularly at a young age that we then see go on to have dependency issues in this space later in life. The correlation is absolutely massive there. So it's just an increasing risk. And the best thing to do is just to put it off as best you can. And one final thing that sort of shows that a little bit is this is the amount of kids getting drunk in the last 30 days. So we're looking here at the sort of middle image. And what we can see is if your parents were totally against you getting drunk, 12% of those kids actually had got drunk in the last days. If your parents were a bit against it, or against it rather, 20%. If they're a bit against it, 41%. And it's 68% there if your parents don't care about you getting drunk. So 68% of those kids reported drunk. So it's not that you have to be like at one end of the scale or other. Every little bit you can do as a parent to put this off, or to try and say that you don't want kids to do it, you'd rather they didn't. come to some arrangement with them, but defer is the best piece, right? So those are the two key messages out of the data, really, and in the booklet is try and help them with their sleep, keep the phones out of bedrooms, and then try and defer alcohol use as best you can. So those reports, they're extensive. They're up on the Planet Youth website. It's not really what tonight is about. Tonight we're going to talk about the Step Up website a tiny bit, and we're going to talk to the guys then about practical information, tips, and stuff from school life, right? So the website was built during summer 2020 as part of a response because of COVID. All the kids left, all the sixth class kids, and all the kids for that matter, left school in March 17 of 2020, and they didn't go back to school until after the summer, and we didn't even know where they're going to go back to school. So there was huge anxiety. No school transition work had happened anywhere. And the kids were obviously, it's a difficult time at the best of times to go from sixth class into first year, but that summer was particularly hard. So the website was built by and large because of that, and it had a huge amount of users. You can see on this slide there, it says 23,000 unique visitors, and there's around 70,000 kids in the country make the school transition every year. We have around 730 secondary schools, and that's the amount of kids that make the move every year. So we had probably around a third of the kids in the country use the website that year, and that would just kind of give you a bit of an indication how important the whole topic is. And even thinking back to your own childhood, you probably remember that a bit as well. These are the main areas of the site, so the main pages that kids were drilling into: how school works, how school works, the timetable, skills for school, tips from older students. You the parent, that's parents looking. You the student, that's students. Friendships, feelings, lockers, staying healthy, timetables, and so on. We might have a tiny quick look at the website in a second. So just to show you, there's eight subject areas: how school works, skills for school, tips from older students, you the student. It's all about efficacy and personal development in there. Friendships and feelings, staying healthy, hygiene is sort of related to the COVID area and just kind of coughs and splutters and colds and things. And then a lot of information in there for parents as well. Okay, that's it really. The website is there if you want to go and check any of that out. And the resources, the video will be there, and the link to the Step Up website is there as well. I'll just drag that across. See, it might work, it might not work. Let me just kill that off. End slideshow. And if I drag that over here quickly, it might work. Okay, so this is the Step Up website. You can see here, student and parent topics, how school works. Click on that. It talks about school routine, timetables, lockers, school bags, subjects, getting lost, adjusting to multiple teachers in classroom, homework, getting to school, school uniform, school rules, journals, phones, sports in school, mentoring system, who's who, typical, what in a typical school might look like, extracurricular, and so on. Right, so it's very thorough. Skills for school, we'll have a quick look at that. Organization, planning your time, study skills, communication, problem solving, that kind of thing. So it's a lot of work went into this back in that, at the year. It's been updated a couple of times since. It's a very useful kind of website. So I just wanted to make you aware of that. And it's something that was really designed for you to go through. Like a young person, a sixth class child can go through this themselves and tip away at it over the summer. But what we did want to do was try and alert you to it, and it's something you can go through together as well. That was the idea, that you as a parent could walk through the site a little bit with your young person. Okay, that's it. I'm going to stop sharing. Right, I hope you found that somewhat interesting. I'm going to basically start monitoring the chat. So if you have any questions that you want to fire in, please do so. You can also email to the info@Planet Youth. And I'm going to run up the questions that have come in already, and I'm going to put them to the guys, depending on what the question is. And one that comes up a lot, which I'm going to put to you, I'm going to put it to you, Niamh, but I think you might jump in as well, Gina, at any time, really. And this one comes up an awful lot, which is kind of anxiety around friends. Are my friends going? Are my friends not going? Am I going to be with my friends when I get to school, and that kind of stuff? So for a bunch of kids, there might be, say, 10 going from a national school to the big school, or there might only be one or two. Right? Am I going to get to be in with my friend? So it's always a big concern, right? So we might touch on that one. I'm worried about my child's confidence. She's really shy about other people and tends not to talk much. It wasn't too bad in primary because everyone knew each other from when she was very small, and the classes were small, so they got on well together. I'm afraid she'd be left out of other groups in secondary school. So I might just put that to you first, Niamh, and say, do schools go to any trouble to try and manage that?
Yeah, well, first of all, what I'd say is that I think it's totally understandable that people are anxious about their child going to secondary school. It's such a huge step. And, it's a totally different dynamic to a national school. National schools are small, secondary schools are big, and there's that sort of scariness around the whole thing until it all takes off. I think there's far more sort of breathing space in a school in a way. You have a lot more personalities to choose from as potential friends. I think you said about this girl being shy, was it, Emmett?
Yeah.
So, you would hope that your child would have at least one good friend in life. And I think really one friend is important. It's not the amount of friends that the person will have. What we find when students come in is they're in a group from primary school already. Some schools will try to timetable them together in groups that they will have some friend with them in a class setting. But really, everyone is coming in from a different kind of background, and there's a lot more opportunity to make friends and to kind of, I suppose, run with that. What I find is girls tend to be a little bit more selective about their groupings, whereas boys just kind of go around in one big large group and they just sort of move around the place together, whereas the girls are far more selective. But what I would suggest, a way to help your child, is to do role play with them before you go in. Have them armoured with questions that they can chat to other people, practice chatting, just the art of conversation. Teach her that her voice is just as important as the confidence girl's voice. Teach her to hold her head up high, teach her to smile. A smile is a huge thing, to make that contact with other people, and just not to be, shyness is fine, and it's an attribute that some people have, and it's absolutely grand. And you're not asking for your child to change, you're just asking them to, I suppose, be armoured with as much as you can give them. I think in extreme cases, then you can have a buddy system set up in a school where a friend group can be organised. Your child might be going to a school where there's a mentoring system. So in that case, you might have a very small group of first years who are assigned to an older student, where they can help out and, have a little eye out and see, are they mixing well? And, break times are a big thing for students. Class time is not so bad sometimes. Sometimes it's the break time and trying to navigate your way around friendships and friend groups and what to do during that time. So it's always good to just join groups if there's a choir going, or if there's a sport that the child might be into, just to join it, a chess group, anything like that.
Thanks for that, Niamh. Gina, have you anything to add to that? A child who's like maybe at the extreme end of anxiety, that they really struggle in this area to
I think parents know their children very well, and often if I meet with adolescents or parents, I will ask the parent, and what were you like at that age? And there's usually a smile where parents are going, oh yeah, I was quite reserved. And sometimes we seek to reassure adolescents, and we actually talk too much to them. And we'll do this now, and we'll do that, and we'll do the other. And sometimes less is better, because they might need you to say, yeah, I get it. This is a big move. Yes, this is tough, but remember that lady Niamh, that was on the webinar, or that person who was there. Sorry, have you lost me there?
No, you're all good.
Okay, just my picture's gone. And so often we need to help adolescents have a voice by saying, yeah, I get it. This is probably a big transition for you, rather than, why do you think, you might be worrying? The more we worry about the future, the more our brain goes to that place of, panic and stress. The more we stay in the present, as we know, the more a parent can reassure themselves, I have a gorgeous adolescent here with a wonderful, reserved, personality. What's the parent's biggest fear? Rather maybe than the adolescent, what is your fear? Can you give it in 3 points? And then can you reassure yourself, and can you look at your adolescent and go, you know what, I actually have great faith in you and belief in you, because I know you're a slow burner, or I know that, you have showed such resilience. So you're giving them evidence all the time. Like Niamh said there, whether they speak a lot or speak less, they all come with the ability to communicate well. And it's our job to manage those anxieties with them rather than catastrophize a bit more, as in what's happening, what. Less is more.
That's a good one. Here's one that's a bit more difficult case, right? So my daughter was isolated, bullied quite a bit by peers in national school, wasn't handled very well, doesn't say much more about that, but these same girls are going to her secondary school. I worry she'd be left out. She refused to talk about it now. Is that something, I know most schools will have bullying policies and so on, but any experiences with that one, Niamh?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think, well, first of all, it's very sad that this particular girl has experienced bullying, and it's very, very unfortunate. And, you know, I think no matter how well a school is run, these things happen. You imagine the place is full of different personalities and they're all trying to coexist at the same time. I think the big thing is to keep the lines of communication open. That's really, really important. Look out for the school journal when you get that at the start of the year. Usually to the front of the journal is the school anti-bullying policy. And, you know, that could be an opener for conversation with the child, you know, just to discuss it with her. I think it's also really important to know what constitutes bullying, and that it can be identified if it happens, but also to know the behaviour that isn't exactly bullying either, and not to get too mixed up. You know, just to remember that bullying is repeated behaviour. And then the other thing is, you know, you might find that your daughter gets a whole new lease of life in secondary school because the groups are more diluted, and there's more opportunity to make friends. And, you know, so really just to kind of just keep the lines of communication open, I would say. And I'm sure Gina now has way more tips on that.
Well, that, you know, the lines of communication for any of us when we've had a difficult experience, it stays in that back part of our brain, because our brain is trying to keep us safe. And it's saying, you were bullied before, oh my goodness, it could happen again. And we know lots of things could happen. And I suppose we've seen since COVID and a lot of isolation that the numbers of school refusal has gone up, because we got into such a habit of avoiding any kind of catastrophe. I think history has shown us there's always somebody in school we don't like or who doesn't like us. And yes, it's very helpful that we have bullying policy and we have a name for it. But it's coming back to what maybe do you not like about this person? Would you be friends with this person, you know, in your life? It's exploring the conversation from a wider perspective. And then, as Niamh said there, you liaise with somebody in the school, you liaise with each other, you communicate as much as possible. And then there's a big part of, well, would you like to go to school, and are you willing to maybe put things down, or we can put some strategies in that keep you safe? And yes, they have their phones, and yes, they can text, and we don't want all the texts coming from the bathroom and pick me up, because it's gone into a heightened anxiety then. You know, it's like sometimes little treats after school. Instead of doing homework straight away, it's like, come on, let's go for ice cream. So you're dismantling some of the anxiety sometimes in a very gentle, soothing, but we've got this attitude. And it is very much a we approach, because you're not on your own. It feels like it when you're going through an anxiety and a stress, but you're absolutely not on your own. And it's always creating that language of alliance. And it does happen, and it has always happened, and it's very unfair. And it can go unseen, we know that. So the more someone has the confidence, the voice, the encouragement to say, you know, I'm not doing okay, the better they are supported. And we do know that.
Okay, and just on that point, really, who can my child talk to if a problem arises? He's been to therapy before as a sensitive child. I don't want schools to know his conduct mental, so he's doing okay at the moment. But in terms of pastoral care within schools, Niamh, there's always a system set up, and this is obviously made very clear at the start, I would imagine, to the kids, you know, who to go to. And,
absolutely, yeah. Different schools have different pastoral care members. So, for example, in our school, and that's really, I suppose, all I can talk about, we have a year for a whole school year, and they're probably the first point of contact for a child. And then you have the school chaplain. I would have people referred to me of different situations, and also a school guidance counsellor. And then you have your principal and your deputy principal. And we spoke there about anti-bullying, and I really want to make it clear that schools have a no tolerance policy to bullying, and it is dealt with as much as possible. But there are unfortunately some cases where it happens, and it has happened by the time it's picked up, and all you can do at that stage, or what we use in our school, is a restorative justice approach, where people are allowed to confront their bully and be able to explain to them how it made them feel, and therefore then they can have, in a safe setting, have that time to have their voice heard in the particular circumstance. But really, the students will be told who they can go to for help. They can go to any teacher. Every single teacher in a school has a pastoral care responsibility. So if a student isn't comfortable going to their year head or going to their chaplain or their guidance counsellor, they can go to any teacher at all. And that can happen, no problem.
And that's made very clear at the outset, I'd imagine. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And it's often parents doing that reminder, like what Niamh is saying there, that is available in school. Like if you think of adults in the workplace, there's often very little available for adults where bullying is happening. Whereas in school, there is a lot of resources available, but it also depends, and I should say and, not but, on the parents saying, yes, I met that Niamh or I met that Mary, and, I think they're safe to talk to. I do think they've got your back. And we're not always going to gel with everyone, but it's repeating that mantra. There is support, there is availability.
Yeah.
Okay.
People that children don't respond negatively to hearing that someone was going to the chaplain for an appointment or anything like that. It's just totally accepted.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. It's very much the norm these days, actually, with the young people. Yeah, I agree. Okay, so changes of routine and workload and all that kind of stuff. My child is worrying about how he's going to do such a long day at school, then come home to do homework, and then fit sports in the evening. So yeah, big transition in terms of classes, workload, teachers, the whole shebang. Any ways that we can help them or give them some heads up about how to manage that and manage their time and so on?
Will I take this?
Yes, you take that, Niamh.
First, I would say, don't give up the sports, don't give up the extracurricular activities. I think they're just as important as the academics. We can't have too much emphasis on academics. You have someone coming in there now, and they might be facing, depending on the school day. In our school, we have hour-long classes. So that child will have 6 subjects in the day. And then they'll go home that evening with 6 sets of homework, possibly, up to 6 sets of homework. So the best thing to do is to look at their timetable and say, okay, what have you tomorrow? And let's first of all cover the subjects in homework that you have tomorrow. Like, there's no point to do history on a Monday night if you don't have history again until Thursday. Try and space it out. Have your timetable laminated, colour-coded. I can't read my timetable every year until I colour-code it. It just looks like double Dutch to me. So colour-code it, laminate it, stick it on the fridge. The other thing to do would be to not spend too much time at homework. If you find that your child is spending too much time at homework, like more than an hour and a half in first year is too much. So I would be saying, just write a note in the school journal. You can communicate with the teacher through that, and you might just say, look, just couldn't get it all done. They made an effort. If the teacher sees that a child is making an effort, that's absolutely fine. If they see that they're being lazy and just not bothering, that's a different story. So, and I would say, you keep the sports going, and just try and manage it as best as possible, and try and say, well, look, we'll do, say, 20 minutes on this subject, and then we're going to move on to the next one. But they do need help at that age. They can't really organise it themselves. And on an organisational point of view, I'd be saying, pack the bag the night before, don't be doing it the next morning, because tensions are fraught in the morning. You're trying to get the breakfast, you're trying to get everyone out the door on time. Get these Ziploc bags. You can get them in any discount store, and put your subjects in there. Like, you know, I teach music, so the kid might have a manuscript and a book and a hardback copy and a workbook and maybe a recorder, and they just grab the whole thing in the one go, you know, and they're not forgetting their equipment at home. So that will just all take down the anxiety. Prepare for the if the PE, they might be allowed to wear the PE gear that day. Have it all set up the night before, you know. But definitely just be logical about it. Don't be thinking, oh, I'm going to get snowed under here. We do a survey every year for first years and their parents, and what we find is the homework is an issue. They come back and say, look, they're just getting too much homework. So, you know, the teachers are responsible for that too, because they should be communicating with each other and trying to, I suppose, spread it out a little bit.
Okay.
And if you know your child very well, sorry to cut across, you know already if they have a learning need, and they might be organized, they may be unorganized, or organization is hard because of a learning need. You're there to be a director, and any parent of even, 30-year-olds will tell you they're still the director. And sometimes we have to hold on to that idea that is a very, very important part of your job, to stay directing. And Niamh is right about the homework. And you mentioned it at the beginning, and I know, Helen, you said it before. You have got to manage device time. Everything we have in life has an opening and closing time. This needs to have an opening and closing time, and it's your job as the parent. And your adolescent will fight you. No, it's private. Yes, I know, sweetheart, but I'm in charge of the privacy. And it's like brushing the teeth. It's like going to bed on time. If you started early and you trust yourself, this will not end up in that meltdown and that breakdown for all of you and it being snuck into the bedroom. Of course they will try that. They're adolescents. That's the fun part of them, where they can sneak past you and get one over on you. But allow that to be fun, as opposed to, oh my God, they're on their phone. The phone isn't the problem. It's amazing. They've got their homework on it. We've got access to the world. But it is your job as a parent to decide what is appropriate time. But yes, the guidelines are there on the website, an hour before bedtime, no phone in the room. If I had this phone in my room, I guarantee you, first thing I would do in the morning is check it. And I guarantee you, if I had one of those smartwatches on, my anxiety would be up through the ceiling, because, oh my goodness, no one looked on my Instagram page. I'm not popular. And we live in that world now where everything is rated. So you're helping them with anxiety, with management, all throughout secondary school. So start on your value system, your rules. Yes, I'll hear about what Niamh is doing, what Helen is doing, and they've let everyone have their phone. It's amazing. I'm not really interested. I'm just interested in how I run my home and what I think is okay. Then you're open to flexibility as they get older.
There would be very good information on this whole sort of topic and area on the WebWise website, which is the webwise.ie. Their stuff is really good. The general guidance, and it's tricky to pin it down, would be something like 2 hours a day maximum of phone time, screen use, social media, all that stuff. Google Family Link is the one I use personally, which is the one where you can set up. It's done remotely. The phone is available for 2 hours a day, and you can just set that. It's a lot easier to do it at the outset. That's the one thing I'll say. Very hard to roll back if a child is used to this for years and years and years, and they've had it a certain way. So we're saying now is the good time, really, when they're heading into secondary, to say, listen, it's going to be set up such and such a way. We would be saying 8:30 is a pretty good time to be aiming for phones out of bedrooms in first year. You can go up maybe 15 minutes, maybe 9 o'clock in second year, and then talk about it after that. Would be kind of an idea. But the Google Family Link is a great one, because you can have the phone just shut down at a certain time. So just the phone is knocked off at 8:30, or it's knocked off. It's a lot easier to hand it up when that's the case. So I'd be saying that would be a good one. But around 2 hours a day, really. Just jumping in on this one, can I put this one to you, Helen? I can see you're coming and going a bit, so the connection's probably bad, but if we have you, just around this sort of idea of organization, we touched on it a little bit. I can see Siobhan's put in a piece about also the color-coded folders. This about helping my child get organized, and there's another one here I might put to you. Should a desk in my child's bedroom be set up for homework instead of the kitchen table? Concerned she will be dossing up there without supervision. There you go. Now, a couple of ones. So helping your child with organization, and then where should they be doing their homework?
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, I think some of it goes back to the phone, because when I talk to first years, and you'll always have the few that are complaining because their homework is taking 2 hours or 2.5 hours or whatever, and they're very full of sympathy for themselves, until we drill down into it and start to look, and then it's, well, I left my journal in school, my pencil case was in the kitchen, and if they go into the kitchen, they have to stop and talk to someone, they have to lie against the door jamb and watch television till mommy turns on and says, get back in there, you. And then they have to check their phone, and then they get a message, and they have to compose a cool message, and then they have to wait for a reply, and they're checking, and actually then you've lost probably an hour with all of that. So I think there's something in that part of it. I think talking to your child about the fact that it's going to be different, not that it's going to be bad or bigger or harder, but just it's going to be different. So we need a new system. We need to put a new system in place. And things, look at the goal. The goal is that they get out to school in the morning in good spirits. They have a good productive day in school, and they come home and they can do their homework. And that starts first, I think, with the sleep part, which is hugely important. Getting enough sleep. Having the bag, as Niamh said, having the bag packed from the night before, everything is ready. So even if you did sleep it out, and you literally are flinging on the uniform and grabbing a slice of toast and out the door, you have everything. There's no racing around going, where's my keys? Where's my locker key? Where's my pencil case? Where's my jacket? They've got everything, and they can arrive in school in a lower state of anxiety than they would if they had to be searching for everything, Using the school diary is very important, school journal, to write notes. And again, even talking to them about how they write the notes. I'm a pathological note keeper. My handbag is full of little notes that made perfect sense when I wrote them. But when I go home and look at them and think I'll put this now, I'll write this up, I've actually no idea. I can't even read my own writing, And for young people just to understand that it's grand that they can understand it when they write it, but can they understand it when they're reading it at home at 6:30 in the evening, And I think those are really important things. Going on to the homework, I think there's too much homework, there's too many books, and there's too much of a need for concentration to be able to do your homework in the living room or the kitchen. There's far too much going on in a house. Kids don't need an office and a big desk. Spread the books out in the bed. Have a table like a 2.5 foot. I'm sitting at a desk now that's about 2.5 foot by 2 feet. A notice board on the wall. Generally, if they're in the corner of the bedroom light's behind them. So really a lamp so they have good light so they can see properly would be important. The timetable up on the wall. I'm a believer in color coding things like Niamh was saying there. Particularly, I think, highlighting the subjects for which they need to bring items the following day. So I've got PE tomorrow. I've got to get my PE gear ready today. And we've never had as many means of organizing ourselves as we have now. I mean, even my one is my alarm in my phone. They could have an alarm in their phone. Let's say today's Tuesday, they've got PE tomorrow, Wednesday, 6 o'clock on Tuesday, my alarm goes, get PE gear. And that's my cue. And for your child, that's your child's cue to go and get their PE gear. That is not your cue to go and get it for them. You used to do that last year. You did that in primary school. You now need to, I love that idea of being a director, Gina, but you now have to direct them to go get it.
Mm-hmm.
And remind them in the evening, you had PE today, didn't you? Did you stick your clothes in the laundry basket? And don't go looking for them. If it comes around to next Wednesday and the clothes are still in a bag and they're now doing a little dance because they've come alive, so what? It won't happen the following week. And I know that sounds cruel. And kids always say to me, oh my God, you must have been an awful mother. But honestly, it pays off in the end, But spreading out the books, doing their homework there and then packing the bag for the morning and returning the bed to a sleeping space. I think that's really important. Bedrooms have many functions. They're where we go to relax, listen to music, read books. We bring our friends, we do our homework, but we sleep there. And I think it's very important that we return the room to being a sleeping space, and at some point in the evening, off with the big light, on with a low light, nice music, something that'll is a little bit relaxing. And you can use these things as triggers, even if you turn off the television at 8:30. And I know that will cause a bit of a hissy fit with a few others in the house, but there's so many versions of +1 and players, nobody's really going to miss anything, But turning off the telly and starting the process of going to bed, that by 9:30 your first year is in bed without their phone, ready to go to sleep. Because sleep is the lack of sleep is having the most dramatic impact on children in so many ways. And do you remember when your kids were little and they were tired and they were cranky and you're saying, oh, he's overtired or she's overtired. They can't think rationally. They can't behave rationally. They become hypersensitive. This is where you'll hear, well, she was looking at me earlier and I don't know if I did anything. She wasn't looking at you. You're just so tired that you're imagining that people are looking at you. Or what do they mean by this? You can't concentrate. And then in the evening, it becomes a big, big monster thing. So I think, yes, the space is important, returning to a sleeping space, the practical stuff like highlighting the timetable and sticking it up on the fridge. After a few months, when I'm talking to 6th class kids about going to secondary school, and I'd say, you need to do this at the beginning. In a couple of months, you're never going to read your timetable because you have it off by heart. You know it off by heart. But anything that you can do to help them, but to help them stand on their own 2 feet, I think is really important. Remind them about the PE or the T-square for woodwork or the music stuff or the art stuff or whatever, but don't get it for them. Remind them to put it away when they come home the next day, but don't do it for them because you're not doing them any favors.
Thanks for that. And speaking of, there's some quite good stuff on the website about time management and organizational skills and laying out your subjects and things like that. So that'll probably be helpful as well. And just talking of subjects, there's obviously a big change there. You mentioned your school doing 6 1-hours, I think, Niamh, and some schools it might be 9 40-minute classes every day. So there's quite a bit of managing of books and lockers and what to bring to school, and that all kind of comes into it a bit as well. Subject choices, that will vary now from school to school. Some will have it all ironed out at the start before summer. Some will do taster sessions, that kind of thing. What if my child starts a subject that they hate or is no good at? Can they change?
Well, I know that I wouldn't leave a child in a subject that they hated anyway if they had picked it and realised that they didn't like it. What's the point? This can be a problem, and we have a fair bit of jumping during that first term sometimes. I know some schools, as Emmett said, do taster sessions, or they might do tasters for a year. There's pros and cons to that. I know certainly in our school they sign up, they have their choices picked by the time they come in, but that can change. What I would say is that I think it's important that your child doesn't stay in a subject that makes them miserable. I think a choice subject should be a subject that they like going into. So as I said before, I'm a music teacher, and what I would say is if someone has a flair for music, let them do music. You might say, but sure, they can do music outside of school. Why not do music? Why not go in there and shine in for that hour or whatever it is, If you're good at art, do art. If you're not particularly good at languages, don't pick French or a language, If you're good at baking, pick home economics. Try and steer them into stuff that they're going to like. If they're good at project work, get a subject that has a good project base in it, and they'll love going into those subjects. And if they go into a subject where they think, I was only doing it for a DOS, and now I realise it's actually hard work, remind them that all the subjects are hard work in their own way, and if they stick with it, if they are good at it, they might just get through, But so I think just the main thing is steer them into something they might actually enjoy and be good at, and they've no choice in the maths and the English, but at least they have a choice in this.
Is there anything around this idea of, well, it'll be different in your place, Niamh, but let's say you might do 3-3-3, right, in a school, or you might do 2-2-2 in your school, but this idea of heavy school bags, right, 9 subjects in a day, swapping, changing, managing lockers and subjects and going home with stuff. Is there any kind of tips or tricks around that you could think or suggest?
Yeah. Well, in our school, we've got iPads. So a lot of people sign up and have the iPad, and they leave their books at home because they might like to use the actual textbooks for homework. So they leave them at home and they'll just use the iPad at school. But if you're not in a fortunate situation like that and the books have to go in, it's all about the organisation, only bringing the books for that day. and going straight to the locker with them, put them in, take out the books that you need, say between the start of the day and small break, go back at the small break and change your books and swap them out, and not be lugging around these heavy school bags. Now, even in our school, there seems to be school bags everywhere, and they seem to be heavy. They seem to be really heavy, even if they don't have the textbooks in them, because you would be surprised at how many hardback copies they'll have. So they will be heavy. There's no doubt about it. I often wondered, could we design bags on wheels or something that might look cool, but I don't think they'd be cool enough for them. No. So look, it's just to try and manage it as best you can. Unfortunately, it is an issue.
Okay.
I know.
Sorry.
Can you just say, for what students tell me, I suppose one of the things is that they often carry books that they don't need. So it might be no harm to check your child's school bag every weekend or every second weekend, just to see, because even myself with my work rucksack, I end up carrying stuff that I don't know, and they don't realize it, and it's getting heavier and heavier. I've had young people tell me that, if I only need 2 pages out of my book, I just take a picture of the 2 pages. And I don't carry the book home at all. The old excuse of I forgot my book has gone by the wayside now, because we have to message our friend and they can send us a picture anyway. So we can't, we can turn that around. Another one said to me, well, if ever I have a free class, I always do the homework with the heaviest books, and then I don't have to bring them home. They're really crafty themselves at coming up with ideas around that. Mm-hmm. But I think the checking their bags, because they can be lethal sometimes for carting around things that they really don't need, and they will need a little bit of guidance for a while, and then they get sent about it.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about autism. Okay, there's a few questions that come here. My child is autistic. What supports will be in place for him transitioning to secondary school? My son is autistic. We picked the best school to meet his needs, but the SNA allocated may not be enough to support him. I feel. Any tips? Very similar questions there. Is that something that you can give us a bit of guidance on, do you think, Niamh?
Yeah, like schools can differ with regard to what they offer, but all schools will offer SNA support, special needs assisted support. And I'm assuming that if a child has already been diagnosed with autism, they're going to have experienced SNA support before. So some schools, they will have, say, an SNA assigned to the student, and in other schools they'll rotate them, so there isn't that huge reliance placed upon their SNA, so more autonomy can develop. So it all depends on, I suppose, on the needs of the child. I know in our school we had actually a non-verbal autistic person with a dog, an assistance dog, who just became the fabric of the school. We had them there for 7 years, and she just graduated this year actually, which was just a huge celebration for everybody in the school. And we're just mainstream school, and it all worked very well with the SNA support. So like their learning support, that's a huge thing. If a person has a specific learning difficulty, they may be exempt from Irish, and that might be an opportunity on the timetable for them to get extra learning support. And remember, the homework could be tackled maybe during that time as well. So all of these things are in place in schools, I'm sure, and my experience is that the learning support departments are tight and they're good, and they do their level best to try to make their resources spread around to as many students as possible. So even if you don't feel that your child has enough support with the SNAs there, they'll benefit in some other way, or it'll kind of balance out, where they might pick certain subjects that they need to go in with the student for, and that sort of thing. But the school should be able to work with you even on that. You know your child best. Communicate with the school. Tell them what you've experienced or what you feel has worked for your child. And in some cases, then you can have students who has difficult behaviour, who has triggers. They may be perfectly brilliant and fabulous 90% of the time, and then a trigger might just set them off. So let the school know, let them know what you do to manage those difficulties, and everyone is just trying to cope with situations as best they can all together, but communication is key.
Everyone's nervous, when change comes about, and secondary school is a huge change. And we try and put in as much support. And you can see a lot of the questions that are coming in are related to, you know, what might happen, what might go on. As everybody here has said, you know your adolescent well, but you may not know how they're going to be in school. So sometimes it's a step at a time. Sometimes when there are additional needs, they need to take a break. They might need a break every 3 weeks. You consult with the school about this. You say, this is what I know best. You know, there may not be homework done because it's more important to be out with the dog. It's more regulating for them. And as long as you're okay and you're giving that message to your adolescent, then there's a shared ownership of that. Now, I think most adolescents will say at some point, I don't want to do homework. And we know there is a lot of homework, and we know there's a lot of choice around subjects. We know that. And I think schools do try their best. And there's no point in one criticizing the other. I wouldn't be a teacher because I don't think I would be very good at it. And we know that it's getting harder and harder for students, for teachers, for parents. And everybody is on the same page, even though everybody might be approaching it differently. And we're not going to get on with everyone or agree with everyone. But as long as the support is going in, the conversation is open, then any type of additional needs brings challenges. Of course they do. And it's hard. It's really hard. So even as parents, remember to give yourself a break. Remember to say, you know, my adolescent got into school today, and that might be your win. And that might be your, wow, now let's all have a treat. You know, actually, let's watch Netflix this evening because we did a great week. And sometimes we forget to do that in the pressure of our modern world and in the pressure of we must do this and we must do that. And if you need to avoid conversations about, you know, my Jimmy is doing great and my Maura, oh, okay, maybe I won't talk to Niamh today about Jimmy and Maura, you know, I'll stay over here. Manage your expectations, because then you help your adolescent to go, yeah, that was a really good day, or I managed that difficult day. I might have had a meltdown, but look at me now, I'm all calm. And that's what we really want at the end of the day, is good relationship, good connection. And it brings meltdowns from all of us. And then you know what, we reset and we recover. And we get it wrong. But we go, okay, let's not hang on to this now like a big weight.
Pretty good. Thanks for that, guys. We're just looking at this one here. Getting lost. My son's coming from a very small country school to a large secondary school. He's worrying a lot about getting lost, making his way between classes. Any suggestions on how I can reassure him?
He's going to get lost. I got lost in school. I still do not have a sense of direction. I get lost everywhere I go. That's my dog. Yes, he's going to get lost, but so is everyone else.
Yeah.
There might be a floor plan in the journal.
Yeah. I think one of the good things that came out of COVID was actually schools started to make videos and put them up on their websites. And, you know, I mean, go look at it. Maybe find landmarks. I mean, I know, you know, even for me, sometimes it's not about where's my seat or where's my whatever. It's the thing beside the fire extinguisher, or it's the one beside the blue pillar. You know, that are there sort of landmarks that they can use to find their way to something. I would also say just look at what everybody else is doing.
Yes.
Yeah.
24.
Always look for the tall person, I always think, because I was so short in school. I was like, where's that person going? It's easier to follow that head sometimes. Yes. Yeah.
But you know, I mean, people and schools do understand, I think, that children are going to get lost.
And just and just ask them, you know, where should they be. And
how long will it take, do you think, Niamh, before people begin to find their feet in terms of the layout and finding the classrooms and things?
Good.
A month?
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely. After that, they're flying it. But
Yeah.
like, what we do is we'll stand outside our door and we'll be guiding people along. Like everyone does it. You know, you have to remember that all of the staff are so used to these new faces coming in every year, and we're programmed to help ultimately. So don't be worrying about it.
And you're good at it. Yeah. Doing stuff over the summer. We had a quick chat about this before we started, right? Here's a parent saying, I think, you know, my sixth class teacher said that my child needs to catch up on English and Irish comprehension. Any thoughts or advice or resources or websites? And we were saying, drop it.
Yo.
Drop it.
If you like going to the library and you like to hang out in the library and it's a social piece and you go for, you know, your cake or your hot chocolate afterwards, make that a fun thing. I know I have one reader in my house and one non-reader, and no amount of convincing over the summer to do reading. So I'm like, okay, it's going to be a bit harder, but okay. And the other one, you know, I have a path worn to the library. Again, know your adolescent. Sometimes non-readers get into it later on. Sometimes they never do. And do we really need to be prepping them over the summer? These lovely days when we want them to have fresh air and vitamin D, when we're going in winter and we're all giving out about how much time we're inside. No, outside.
When you think of the pleasure that you can get from reading, why would you force feed it to somebody and actually take all the joy out of it? They're going to have 5 years of reading coming up, and you've sucked the life out of them over the summer holidays trying to prepare them for first year. I think there's loads of time in first year to establish where somebody is, and you can always add a little bit extra once school starts. But give them the summer.
Yeah.
A Catholic child, now this would apply, I suppose, to any religion really, but the question here is, I have a non-Catholic child going into Catholic ethos school. Any thoughts on this? What about you?
My advice is that just education is just another academic subject and it's not taught in a faith-forming way. So I would say that there should be no reason why a person should feel excluded from it as a subject. You know, it covers all of the major world religions. It looks at the concept of community and what that's all about, and, you know, clubs and morality and all of that sort of thing. So if it's just treated as just another academic subject, I don't think that should be a problem. I think that if there's Catholic events happening, non-Catholic students are more than welcome to be present and without feeling obliged to partake. So, like, you know, if you kind of think of it more as nearly like an assembly, it's, you know, it might just make them feel more included rather than, you know, them feeling that they can't go, because it might just get some little thing out of it. It might be just a word that's said or something like that, you know, but they certainly wouldn't have to participate. But it is a tricky one, absolutely.
And can we just touch on this idea of extracurricular, maybe, whether that's after school or during school? I have a child starting in this fairly sporty school and no interest in sports. Never liked it, never will like it, and, you know, feel they might be excluded a bit because of that. I mean, there's something there. A lot of schools do encourage a lot of extracurricular now, and there's all sorts of programs and things going on. So any thoughts on that, really, about kids who really aren't sporty?
Yeah. I had this situation with my son. He's now going into Leaving Cert. He doesn't understand why a ball would be kicked around a pitch. He just doesn't get it, hates it, would have never ever in his wildest dreams dream of kicking a ball, you know. So he liked chess. So he pushed principal, set up a chess club, and it became quite popular. Extracurricular can be during school time, during break times at school, or after school. So it's anything that kind of goes on related to the it's outside of the curriculum, let's say. So I find it's a great opportunity for students to make friends, like join the choir, the ensemble or music group, or the chess club, anything like that. I think that, you know, it's difficult to have a child who's not a boy, particularly a boy who's not sporty. You worry about them, but they will find their niche. They'll find other people who are interested in what they're interested in, because they'll stand out. And then the other side of it is you might have a child who loves sports but doesn't really achieve in sports. So the thing there would be to use it as a resilience building exercise. That, look, that's the way life is. You know, we're not always picked for the team, and we're not going to be in life. And if we try to, I suppose it's touching on what Helen said earlier, if we try to wrap our children up in cotton wool and do everything for them and protect them from everything, we're teaching them absolutely nothing. We're not preparing them for the world, because the world is a tough place, and that's just the reality of it. So to be there as a support, but not to kind of overly interfere, I think is a good thing.
Yeah, and touch one of the, I suppose, the big takeaway. We're kind of running out of time a little bit. We're finishing up in about 4 minutes, but a big takeaway for me from this always really is that schools are, and school management and school teachers and school staff are, it's an incredibly supportive place these days. You know, a lot of people think back maybe to my own school experience and so on. It was kind of echoey halls and all that sort of scary. It's not quite the same anymore. You know, there's a huge effort that goes into making children welcome and integrated and safe, and all of that goes on there. And just that idea of communication between parents and the school, that to keep that, you know, to talk to school management, to let them know if you have concerns, to, you know, to keep in communication if there's changes and so on. They're very open. The doors are very open these days, I think, maybe is what I'm trying to get at. Do you have any thoughts around that one, Niamh?
Oh, absolutely. I think, yeah, you're absolutely right. Generally speaking, staff of schools will go to great lengths to make people feel welcome and to make them feel that they're part of this community, because it is a community. It's a community of people, yes, trying to achieve a goal at the end of the day, which are state exams ultimately, but the process in getting there is varied, and it is supportive and it's encouraging. Of course, you're going to come across the grumpy teacher that maybe doesn't come across as being very nice or whatever, you know, but life is like that. But the majority of people should be supportive if they're in that role at all.
There is a huge, there's a huge onus on parents to support adolescents. And that's who adolescents rely on the most. Some adolescents are really good at opening up to a teacher, to, you know, school therapists, to counselors, and some aren't, because they might not do that for years. So the onus there is to help your adolescent as much as possible to figure things out. Sometimes they want to talk. Sometimes a lot of adolescents don't want to talk. So it's about being creative. It's about not panicking too much. We all worry. I mean, it's called love and it's called connection. And it's a hard job for adolescents. It's a hard job for parents. Sometimes set your expectations, be realistic, be kind, take breaks, know your adolescent. You know, if they're a YouTuber and they want to be the next YouTuber, you know, and suddenly they have school to navigate, then there's going to be a bit of a bumpy ride there between I want to do this and I need to do this. And you're trying to avoid all that confrontation. And the tighter the boundaries, the more the communication comes in with kindness, with love. Boundaries are safe. Rules, as we know, it's an adolescent's job to break them. It absolutely is. So put the boundaries in, back to the phones, back to the sleep, all the practical stuff. And you, the parents, can only decide what amount of screen time. There's guidance everywhere, all over the Planet Youth website. But you have to decide what's realistic for you. You know, there's no point in me saying, yes, 8 o'clock to you if you're going, oh, seriously, Gina, I've just got home from work. I want a bit of downtime, so I don't mind them being on their screen. Fine. There's no one a parenting expert. You know, there really isn't. It's all guidelines, and what works today may change in 3 weeks, 3 months' time. And it's been open to that.
Thanks for that,
Can
Gina.
I just add something, Emma, there? Just around, you know, this time, this is a really exciting time. And watching your child grow up through adolescence is actually really lovely. You will have grey hair and wrinkles at the end of it, you know, but that's fine, you know. But when you can walk the journey with them and think about what is it that they want, what stops them from talking to you in the first place is the fear of what you're going to do with the information that you've just gotten. If you lose the run of yourself at the opening paragraph of a story, you are never going to hear the end of that story, because they're too afraid of you're going to grab the keys and go to someone's house, or you're going to ring the school and you're going to make a fuss. But if you can reassure your child that you will listen to everything that they have to say, that you'll hold all your judgments in, you're there in your head going, I never liked that one, you know, whatever it is, but keep it to yourself, you know, and chat it through. They will come to you with things. And my experience with young people is the ones who are doing the best in the world are the ones who have good connections with home. The ones who always know that no matter what happens, they can come home, they can come and talk about it. Doesn't mean that there will not be a conversation about how you got yourself into this mess, but that's after you've helped them fix it. you know. So walking it with them, understanding that, so what if you didn't like maths? They might like maths. Don't tell them about how horrible maths were, or how horrible history was. So what if they like a subject, you know, and they want to spend more time on it? So what if they want to hang out with their friends? Negotiate and help them to learn how to negotiate. But have those conversations and really, you know, dial it back a bit with reaction, I think is a big important part there.
Thanks for that. I've always seen you do presentations in this line previously, Helen, and talk about this sort of period of your child's life, really, secondary school, I suppose, it's something of a journey from being a dependent young child to an independent young adult, really. And that's part of this idea of, you know, supporting them through that journey and building a resilient young adult, really, is this idea of letting them, you know, supporting them find their way as opposed to doing things for them. You know?
Well, you see, we're parenting in the moment. You're parenting a 4-year-old or a 14-year-old, or you're still parenting a 24-year-old, but you're parenting in the moment, but you're laying the foundations for that young adult that goes out into the world. There's no switch that flicks at 18 where they suddenly are able to do their laundry and manage a bus timetable and budget and all that stuff, or tell somebody they're feeling bad. That doesn't happen at 18. That won't happen at 18 if you haven't been building it up as they're going along, you know, incrementally. And it's just, so we parent in the moment around secondary school or going into primary school or whatever it is, but we're also laying the foundation for the future. You know, that's
okay. Listen, it's getting late. I think we've run a little bit over. Is there any last bits and pieces anybody would like to throw into the mix before I wrap things up?
Don't be worrying.
Yeah, trust yourself. Absolutely. Trust your adolescent. Mostly everything is temporary, anxiety, stress. But, you know, children are for life.
Yeah. I think those are good points to really finish on, you know. And thanks, guys, very much for being a part of this and for such, you know, useful and helpful information and insights. I think they're always incredible. And that's it, really. I'm going to shut things down. This will come out as a recording and a link, and I'll send you a kind of link to the website, and probably I'll send you the little booklets, the parent booklets, and so on. Get in touch if there's anything, you know, as by way of a follow-up, you'd like a bit more information. I'll do my best to accommodate that. And that's it. Sorry we didn't get to cover every single last question, but I think we covered quite a lot of ground there, and there should be enough. I think hopefully people, you know, are a little bit happier with what's coming ahead of them in September or late August, I suppose. That's it. Thanks, everybody. I'll leave it at that. Good night.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Bye-bye.